Penn State fans, it's game week. It's Nevada Wolfpack week. It's Penn State pretty significant favorite over Nevada week. It's new look Beaver Stadium week. It is transfer wide receiver week. It is the quest to catch Evan Royster has begun week. There's so many things to get to. Bob Flounders here with Max Ralph. Max, I know that fans, I'm trying to think the last time I think Penn State fans have been this excited about a season. The 2016 team that won the Big Ten title, this wasn't that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They snuck up on, they really had to find themselves before they beat Ohio State and got on a roll. The 2005 team that only lost one game, one in the Orange Bowl. They kind of snuck up on a couple people too. So really, I mean, we're talking a long, long time, like the 90s, since Penn State fans have been this excited about a Penn State team. They are strong at a lot of positions. They're still building depth at other positions. We just heard, Max, from James Franklin a couple hours ago in his first regular weekly in-season news conference. I thought he was in a pretty good mood. I would be too if I was playing Nevada, and then I was playing FIU, and then I was playing Villanova. But he seemed relaxed. A lot to get to. How you been? What was your weekend like? And are you ready? Are you ready to work the next 127 consecutive days? I'm kidding. Are you ready? Are you ready to ramp it up?
Bob, you're absolutely right. The intro to our subscriber-exclusive newsletter this morning, which I curate twice a week in season. If you haven't subscribed, you should subscribe to that. Nice little plug there. But the intro was, hey, look, this marathon's starting today and probably going to run through the end of January. So make sure you're tuned in, locked in. It's gonna be fun. You made a great point. I don't think that, at least in the James Franklin era, especially, there has not been a team as anticipated as this. I think the only one that maybe even comes close is 2017, because as you mentioned, the 2016 team kind of stuck up on people, but with how good that season ended up being and a lot of returning players, 17 had some hype around it, but obviously didn't end the way that Penn State wanted it to. But other than that, you go back to 1994 when they were ranked number 1. This is the highest preseason ranking that Penn State has ever received other than the 94 season. This is the only time they've ever been number 2 in the AP poll. It's hard to overstate how big this year is for James Franklin, for the program, for everybody inside of it. And I'm excited to get into it. My weekend was great, Bob. I hope yours was as well.
Oh yeah.
Got some golf in before the season started. Weather was really, really nice. You can't complain. And I'm ready to go. 3:30 on Saturday. Bring it here.
All right, you asked for it, Max. You're going to get it. All right, Penn State fans. So we're gonna just kind of go through. Johnny McGonigal and Max are going to be live on Thursday. That's going to be more of a, not that you guys need a preview of Nevada, but it's going to be more game specific. We'll have heard from maybe a couple of Penn State players by then. There'll be some game picks floating around, but right now, just the mood of the team, what James kind of had to talk about, the news of the day. We're gonna get to that. There was some news. He was asked about a lot of different players, a lot of different positions. I'll start with you, Max. What jumped out to you the most about either a Franklin answer or maybe a topic, or was there something that surprised you? What, as we sit here at almost 4:00 on Monday, August 25th, what was your one biggest takeaway from James's interaction for about 40 minutes with the press?
Yeah, it's a story that you already got up on PennLive, Bob, that the readers can go check out. Yeah. But as far as these depth chart conversations go, I was a little bit shocked to see how open James was with us in the media on Monday. Really a lot more transparency than we're used to getting as far as depth chart conversations go, especially this early in the season. And the one out of we really pretty much got through almost every position on the roster, but the one that stood out to me was at safety, which is a pretty deep position group that we've talked about in the offseason. But he was asked who's starting alongside Zakee Wheatley, and he told us it's Antoine Belgrave-Shorter, a second-year player who made the switch from cornerback to safety during the season last year, and got a little bit of talk in the offseason, but really was not the expectation for him to be the guy that comes out of camp as the second starter. I think for personal reasons, at least, I was more expecting a Dejon Lane, a King Mack, even maybe a Colin Dinkins, who we've heard is more so in the nickel position. But yeah, I mean, I think between those 4 to 5 guys, we're gonna see all of them. But it's Antoine Belgrave-Shorter who's getting the nod out of camp as the second starter, and I think that's really intriguing.
It is, and as somebody who's listened to James in his 12th year, almost from the beginning, there's a couple things you can pick up on as the offseason plays out, whether it's winter workouts, whether it's what's going on the couple weeks that play out with spring camp leading up to the blue-white game, and then August. Because over that stretch, you hear from them, probably 10 to 12 times in availabilities. And what I have learned is there's always a couple of tells. And when it comes to Belgrave-Shorter, I agree with you that definitely caught me off guard. But if you really think about it, when James doesn't talk about players you expect him to talk about, and I'm not going to say praise, but mention them. Mm-hmm. We didn't hear a lot about Lane. We did not hear a lot about King Mack. I know King Mack was dinged up in spring in spring drills, but that's a guy that Penn State was familiar about. That's a guy that's a big athlete. They liked him as a true freshman. He played at Alabama. Max, I don't know how many times you heard his name referenced by the coaching staff. I didn't hear it at all. He was not. I don't think he was ever on Jim Knowles' Defender of the Day radar. I know that Belgrave-Shorter was, Lane was, but sometimes it's what you don't hear that you should kind of be prepared for, maybe a surprise or two. And we just didn't hear very much about the safeties other than Zakee Wheatley. We were certainly asking about that, but those names didn't come up a lot. I did think that at the start of the offseason, it probably would be Lane, right? Mm-hmm. And then I probably figured if they needed a third safety, or it was probably going to be Mack. And I think you have to give Belgrave-Shorter a lot of credit for the progress he's made at safety. And James said, look, in preseason camp, he kind of led the team in takeaways. He earned the job. Just one other thing. I think one of the reasons why James didn't hesitate to talk about that, whereas like he didn't want to say anything about the backup quarterback job, even though he said it's a done deal. I do think those 4 safeties are going to see a ton of action. I think there's going to be times where maybe it doesn't necessarily matter who the starter is. Max, last year I can remember, it's not the same thing, but Jalen Reed and Winston were all we heard about, and we didn't hear very much about Zakee Wheatley, even though Tom Allen liked to play 3 safeties. Yeah. But, something happens to Winston early in the season, and Wheatley not only plays, but he had, I think, everyone's talking about, the Khalil Dinkins, and this is his year. I just think what he did last year was really, really incredible. And I just think the safety story is still being written at Penn State as we get ready for this opener. It's advantage Belgrave-Shorter right now, but I do think like a player especially like Lane by maybe mid-season, it could be a little bit different. But I'm with you, Max. I was definitely surprised, and you're right. He doesn't usually come right out and say it.
Yeah, absolutely. This might sound a little bit silly, but one of the indicators that maybe we weren't talking about Belgrave-Shorter enough to me in the offseason was when they released an update on jersey numbers, and he ended up going from 23 to 3. Typically at Penn State, guys who are wearing single-digit jerseys are pretty good players. Whatever there is about it, I can remember a few years ago, this name is a controversial one among the fan base, but Keandre Lambert-Smith switched from 13 to number 1, and that was kind of the offseason where everybody was saying he took a step to being the number 1 receiver. Liam Clifford did it. He went from 82 to 2 when everybody said, he's been a vet guy around. So I saw that from Belgrave-Shorter. Again, a silly, not really meaning a whole lot thing, but kind of tipped me off that this was going on. And now we see through the summer and fall camp that he really has made good on that switch, and all the lack of talk, he's turned it into us needing to talk about him. But as you said, we got to hear from Anthony Poindexter just last week, and he did say, I anticipate playing 4 to 5 guys in the first few weeks of the season. So absolutely book not closed there, but an interesting name nonetheless. An interesting development to hear Belgrave-Shorter as the first name up next to Wheatley.
I was kind of excited to hear it, Max, because he's a player now Saturday against Nevada that I want to make a point to
Yeah,
watch, because
absolutely.
we just didn't know very much about him last year. We didn't. If we did, I know he played in 7 games, not a lot on special teams when he did get in, but he's a guy now that I definitely want to kind of focus on a little bit, because I don't know. I have not seen enough of him. I want to know more about him, because Penn State, Poindexter's track record with safeties is almost as good.
Really good.
Yeah, like usually those guys get good in a hurry. I'm excited to see him. Max, I just wanted to say my number one takeaway, it's not so much from what he said today, but my far and away the number one takeaway I have from preseason camp, because of how it transpired, is, and I guess arrival is not the right word because he hasn't played yet, but Chaz Coleman to me is my number one takeaway from preseason, just because, look, they have a really good recruiting class. He was a 4-star kid. But to me, very rarely at a position of need, and this became a position of need when, they lose Abdul, Smith Vilbert doesn't come back, Max Granville gets hurt. They have a couple young edge rushers, and I'm on social media, and Jim Knowles is praising this kid as his defender of the day, and I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then the minute he was made available the next week in practice, so was James. They both just gushed about him. Deion Barnes, same way, gushed about him. And to me, it is very significant when you don't enroll early in January and at a position of need in a matter of a week, people are raving about you. That is a big deal. I'll tell you this. The last time I think this happened, and I hate to make this comparison, but it was Abdul Carter in 2022. Did not enroll early. He was a linebacker. And the next thing you know, he's in the Purdue game, and he would have played a lot more if he didn't get ejected for targeting. But, you saw him at Auburn looking real comfortable. And I just feel like it's kind of similar. It's very rare when this happens at Penn State, when you get there late and you're already on the short list of the defensive ends at Penn State. It's a big deal. And to hear all these people pretty much in unison saying what they're saying about him, I just can't wait to see him moving forward.
Yeah, me too, Bob. That's a great call out. It's just, as soon as we heard his name, now, like, I can go back. Obviously, I've kind of taken the lead on our recruiting stuff for the most part since I got here at PennLive. And when he committed, looking into him a little bit, like, his basketball tape was legit. Like, the dude can jump out of the gym. He probably could have played Division I basketball somewhere. Knew he played quarterback, get out there, run, whatever. He was new to defensive end, though. And so when he came into the program, when he committed, it was really like, all right, this kid's going to take at least a year to figure out the position, to learn a defense, to get the body right. And then James Franklin brings him up midway through fall training camp, and he says, yeah, guess what? He's already gained 25 pounds, and the athleticism has completely transferred to defensive end. Yeah. And then as soon as that happened, we didn't stop hearing about him from anybody, and everybody who said something about him said it in the exact same light. Like, the kid obviously is completely legit. Sounds like, even though we haven't gotten the chance to talk to him personally, sounds like got a great head on his shoulders, humble kid, based on the reports we've heard from people, and just so impressive. Like you said, it's hard to overstate how hard it is to come in or late like that into the summer and make this impact. When we've seen him out at practice, he's been, number 2 guy right behind Dennis Sutton in the defensive line drills. I can't wait to see him on Saturday because I do still wonder, what kind of adjustment there is for him to learn a defense at this level. But it's very, very, very clear that the athleticism is going to be able to play in the Big Ten right away.
Yeah, Max, how many times in Jim Knowles' career as a defensive coordinator, whether it was at Oklahoma State or Ohio State or here, did he give an August arrival a nickname as a
Yeah.
true freshman like a week into practice? Like that, I was like, what? You gave him a nickname? Like
Yeah.
that to me, that was the final straw for me. I'm like, this guy's gonna be a dude. And
Yeah.
he just is because you that I don't. Jim Knowles probably throws out compliments to freshmen like they're manhole covers. I mean, you just don't.
Yeah.
You just don't see it. But he was just, when I talked to him, he talked for about a solid 90 seconds about everything this kid had going for him and the way he was, the way he approached the game and all this stuff. So having said all that, I mean, there's a lot more to get to, but to me, Belgrave-Shorter certainly was a real big story today. And I just think for the entirety of preseason camp, what Chaz Coleman has been able to do on the practice field, not in a game, in a very short time, has him positioned to be definitely a player to watch, especially in the next 2 or 3 weeks. He's one of now just two, it was three, only one of 2 green lights. Max, you can talk a little bit about that. I still like the defensive end that was the original 3rd green light, but he's now, I think it's one of those deals where we like him this year. We don't have to play him this year and burn his red shirt. We won't, but we're prepared to do it. But there's just 3. I mean, that doesn't surprise me that there's more just because of the depth that this team has at spots that typically where true freshmen, play, like safety and corner. But they've only got 2 that they're targeting, and they're both going to be, I think, really good. But they did walk back one of the green lights.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm glad you went there because that's how I felt we should wrap up this conversation about freshmen. It's Daryus Dixon, who is should be no surprise to anybody that he's greenlit, even if it's largely a special teams role. The kid is physical and big enough to do it right away, and will get some run at corner. Let's not misconstrue that. But Dixon and Coleman are the 2 green lights, and then the 2 that James said he mentioned that were right on the bubble is Yvonne Kamaju at the defensive end spot and Kobe Howard on the offensive side at wide receiver. Kamaju, we've heard good things about him. He was a winter enrollee, got some run in the spring game, the blue-white game, along with the first team defense. Really, he was out there. It could just be a matter of consistency. It could be, as you said, Bob, it could be a matter of we have 2 freshman defensive ends that we feel really good about. This one, a.k.a. Coleman, is just a little bit ahead of this one in Kamaju. Why burn both their red shirts if we don't have to? But as James Franklin said, Kamaju is probably going to play in the first 3 games like he is, in the rotation. He's going to play a lot in the first 3 games. Yeah. And depending on how that goes, he could force their hand and say, all right, yeah, you're going to end up being greenlit. But yeah, I think it's an interesting situation. Kobe Howard, on the other hand, have seen a lot of good things out of him in fall camp, especially. And, obviously wide receiver is a position of need until they prove that it's not. And basically what James Franklin said was we want to see more out of him on special teams right now, beyond just returning kicks or punts or whatever it may be. He wants to see him blocking, tackling on special teams. But as a caveat to all that, he is technically in the 2 deep at wide receiver behind Kyron Hudson on the depth chart at, I guess that's probably the Z position. I don't know exactly how Penn State determines all of those things, but Kobe Howard, Kyron Hudson in the 2 deep kind of for each other there. So I do anticipate Howard will play this season in some capacity. He'll definitely get to his 4 games. I'm certain of that. Probably contribute in the playoff run. But like you said, Bob, those are the 4 that we heard about today. I don't really think any of them are major surprises, especially just based on what we've heard throughout fall camp. There could be more coming, but those are the big ones as far as the freshmen go that we heard about today.
It's the blue-white breakdown Monday. It's game week, Nevada. Just a slight 44.5-point underdog against Penn State at Beaver Stadium. 3:30 kick. Bob Flounders, Max Ralph talking about some of our takeaways from James Franklin's traditional Monday Newser. Max, I got something for you. So I'm talking about sometimes it's who you don't hear about, right?
Yeah.
So early in his press conference, James was asked about, because there had been we had heard some things through the grapevine that Devontae Ross might not have been completely 100% at some point in preseason camp. He's a guy that I think really considering what he can do and what he did against Iowa last year is an enticing option for Penn State
Mm-hmm.
in the passing game as a receiver who can fly, and he can also help as a returner. James did acknowledge he was a little bumped up, little bumps and bruises, but he said the last week or so he's starting to look like his old self. He's really started to come on. He's ready to go against Nevada. But what I wanted to ask you was this. He also said, look, it'll probably be Devontae Ross and Liam Clifford kind of rotating. That was my takeaway, that maybe it'll be they'll split snaps. There's no reason to rush Ross if he's not 100% given their non-conference schedule. But my question to you is, so you have the 3 transfers. You have Liam Clifford. You just talked about Kobe Howard. We're less than a week away from the opening kick. And the Imhotep charter kid that we're talking about is Kenny Wosley. Mm-hmm. It's not Tyseer Denmark. And I bring that up because there were a lot of people that every time, he had that touchdown catch against Maryland. We had a chance to talk to some players, I think in February, and about the redshirt freshman class. A lot of excitement about him. I'm just wondering where he is I know it's only his second year. He's a gifted kid. You could see it on the practice field. You could see it when he got in the game against Maryland. I'm just a little bit curious about kind of where he is and what you think about. I have not heard a lot of people talk about him, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, he's in the 2 deep. James Franklin said, I believe, if I'm not forgetting, he was in the second spot behind Traber Pena as kind of the rotation there.
Okay.
It's interesting because he is a really talented player. I mean, even when we saw him on the field in brief stints over the past year and a half, it's very clear he has a lot of open field ability. Yeah. He returned a couple of punts last year and looked good. But on the other side of that is even when he returned those punts, it looked like the decision-making was a little bit off, maybe a little loose with the ball, maybe catching a punt when he shouldn't have or when he should have fair caught it and trying to return it. Some stuff like that was in there last year that I think held him from being more of an impact down the stretch once you get into the playoffs where the red shirt is no longer a concern. I think it's probably the same situation still this year where they really like what he can do on the field and as a wide receiver. Mm-hmm. But it's just some of the minute details where they need to see a little more consistency, whether that's special teams like Kobe Howard, whether that's simply blocking on the perimeter, whether it's route running and no missed assignments, whatever it may be. The thing that we always hear about him is consistency. I think he's a guy that can contribute this year in some capacity. It may not be more than 10 to 20 catches because he is going to be a 2 deep guy. And as long as nothing happens to Traber Pena, he is not going to see the field a whole lot in meaningful snaps because Pena is that guy. But I do think Denmark is a valuable piece, especially in his second year. I think if you can get to the double-digit catch mark, that's a win. Because he's a young guy, and I think as long as all goes to plan this year, he's a guy that absolutely can help in a big way next year. And the last thing I'll say is just I think he's a player who, because of the dynamic ability that he has and kind of a big on the field personality, he likes to talk the talk. He said that himself. In the spring, he's a big personality on the field. It may really just take a couple of moments for him in a game where he makes a big play or something happens for him to kind of unlock and be a big piece down the stretch. I think he's important depth. He's not quite there yet, but I think he'll contribute.
We'll see. We will see. This is like these 3 games, right? If he's healthy, this would be the time you would think you would see maybe him string together maybe a couple of moments as these first 3 games play out. Max, before we wrap this up, because it's sailing by, so you and I talked after last Tuesday's availability. We were up in State College, and James was asked about the backup quarterback, and he said, "Hey, we're pretty close. We're pretty close. We just haven't had a chance to talk to the guys, but we have a pretty good idea how it's going to play out." I think I asked you on camera, and you said you were pretty. Based on what you've seen in practice, it would stun you if it wasn't going to be Ethan Grunkmeyer. Jackson Smolik had, I think, a pretty good offseason. He certainly had his moments in the spring game. Any thoughts on why obviously they haven't told these kids yet, but I just don't understand what's the delay? Don't you have to start divvying up those reps, or like what do you for you it's still Grunkmeyer, but why do you think there's kind of been a pregnant pause?
Well, Bob, what I'll say is I think that the reps were already divvied up starting, last week and a half ago. They already started to act as if Ethan Grunkemeyer was the number 2. They just hadn't said it, publicly / confirmed it behind closed doors with those guys. I think, honestly, the biggest reason why it hasn't been said publicly is because of the way the transfer portal is these days. They want both of those guys happy. They want them feeling like they're in a competition right now, which, don't get me wrong, they are. And James Franklin said today, he said, look, this is probably closer than a lot of you thought it was. It could change as we go throughout the year. We'll see. I don't know if I totally believe that or not. It could be true. It could just be, trying to keep everybody happy. But look, they need 3 quarterbacks to go down the CFP stretch, as we saw last year, because Ethan Grunkemeyer ended up being the backup. So you need to kind of play the game. You got to play ball with them. I still think Ethan Grunkemeyer is the guy. I think Jackson Smolik is talented. I think that, if it doesn't happen at Penn State, it can happen at maybe a smaller school soon. But yeah, I think it's Ethan Grunkemeyer. I think the waiting game is just to keep everybody happy, because that's kind of how you got to do this thing in 2025.
All right, Max. Now I just thought about this. I'm like, knowing that I just brought up the backup quarterback and the fact that they haven't named a starter, even though we are anticipating it being Grunk, in like the next 2 or 3 hours, there's going to be a depth chart update, and they'll probably will be resolved either first thing Tuesday morning or later tonight. Or maybe it'll just be an or thing, just as I let this play this out and try and keep both players happy. But Max, I think as far as the Monday presser, the hay's in the barn for us as far as breaking down what James was asked and how he kind of reacted. There probably will be some player interviews. There'll be an assistant coaching press conference, I believe, on Thursday. I can handle that, but we're 5 days away from the opener. Before I let you go, anything else you'd like to add? Anything you're working on? Anything you want to tease about Thursday's spectacular pod you have with Johnny McGonigal?
No, just bring your questions, your comments, because we've had a lot of fun with those the past couple of weeks. We've got some great participation. If you haven't tuned in for a live show yet, why not, is all I got to ask you, because they've been fun. Go do it. And we will have game picks, Bob. Even though you won't be on the pod, we will make sure to honor your pick from.
Please do. I'm a tortured soul. I'm going back and forth. I had Nevada winning about 15 minutes ago. Now I'm not sure, but I would appreciate if you give me a little shout out when I do make.
Absolutely. You and Joe Hermit both. And the last thing I'll say is you can guarantee I am not picking Penn State by 44.5 points on Thursday.
I know. Well, it would be really hard for you to do that. But if you did pick 45-0 or 43-0, I think I could respect that.
Yeah, fair enough. But come tune into the live show. We'll have some fun.
All right, guys, that's it for this edition of the Blue White Breakdown. We'll be back later in the week. You never know what's coming next here at PennLive, but we're both looking forward to Saturday's opener at New Look Beaver Stadium, and I'm sure you guys are as well. Just be on the lookout for Max and Johnny's podcast.